Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
The table gleamed under golden light, each wine glass catching the glow like a spotlight, daring me to flinch. 7 place settings, 7 faces I knew too well. And yet I felt like a stranger. Still playing with knives and pans, Scarlett? My sister Betsy's voice, syrupy and sharp, floated across the table. Her diamond bracelet clinked as she reached for her wine. I hear food service is the new struggling artist phase. I smiled tightly. I'm not struggling. My brother Hugo chuckled. Well, you're certainly not paying for this dinner. Not at Morel, place costs a fortune. My father cleared his throat. Let's not embarrass her. Maybe she's got a boyfriend footing the bill. I took a sip of water, trying to keep my hands from trembling. I invited you. I'll pay for everything. Will you pay for everything? My mother said, eyes darting across the candlelight. Darling, we're talking about one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city. Even you must admit it's a bit extravagant for your profession. I didn't respond. I watched as the first course arrived. My seasonal tomato tartare en brioche with micro basil and a citrus drizzle. Betsy poked it with her fork. It's tiny. It's a tasting menu, I said. My father squinted at the wine. Passable. Not exceptional. I bit the inside of my cheek as they dissected each detail. Portion sizes, wine pairings, service. My life's work picked apart like an amateur performance. Honestly, Scarlett, Hugo said, swirling his glass again. How do you afford this? Maxing credit cards? I met his gaze. No. I just manage my finances carefully. Or you're dating someone very generous, Betsy said with a cold smile. The second course arrived. I watched them eat food I designed, trained chefs to perfect, and yet here I sat, shrinking under their assumptions. I breathed in, held it, said nothing. They thought they were dining above me, but they were already seated in the empire I had built. And soon, they'd realize it. The second course arrived like a procession, seared duck breast with cherry gastrique and rosemary farro, a dish I'd spent weeks perfecting. The scent alone was enough to draw the attention of nearby tables, but at ours, disdain. Hugo cut into the duck with his fork, no grace, no care, tearing the tender meat like it had wronged him. This is undercooked. It's medium rare. I replied evenly. The ideal temperature for duck. I prefer my meat well done, he said flatly, pushing his plate toward the edge. Jessica, he called to the server without looking up. Take this back and cook it properly. Jessica glanced at me before masking her irritation with practiced ease. Of course, sir. Across the table, Betsy was still dissecting the previous course. That tomato dish? Overcomplicated, and the brioche was dry. It was meant to highlight the acidity, I said, my voice tight. Oh, she smiled. Well, it didn't. My father sipped his wine, unimpressed. The pores are stingy. And this duck? What happened to a proper roast with crispy skin? You know, Scarlett, some tradition isn't worth reinventing. They didn't know. Still. And I wasn't going to tell them. Not yet. So. Betsy leaned in, voice syrupy sweet. If you're not dating someone rich, and you're not drowning in debt, how are you paying for all this? I met her gaze. I'm careful, that's all. Hugo chuckled. Careful doesn't cover a dinner here. This meal costs more than your rent, I bet. I can handle it. You said you invited us, my mother chimed in, her tone sharper now. But you still haven't answered the real question. Who's footing the bill? The weight of their suspicion pressed against me like a vice. The duck returned, overcooked now, dry, lifeless. Much better, Hugo said smugly, chewing like he'd won a prize. I sat back, fingers laced in my lap. Every bite they took, every critique they made, they were unknowingly devouring my craft. They didn't know whose kitchen they insulted, but the bill would arrive soon. And so would the reckoning. The final savory course had just been cleared when the black leather check folder arrived, placed discreetly at the center of the table by Marcus. I saw him glance at me just for a moment, his eyes asking, "Are you ready?" My father reached for it instinctively. But Hugo beat him to it, flashing that smug grin he wore like cufflinks. "Please, Richard. Let me." My father chuckled. "If you insist." Hugo flipped the folder open. and I saw the exact moment the smile drained from his face. His brow twitched, his lips parted slightly. He covered the reaction quickly, but not fast enough for me to miss it. "Is there a problem?" my father asked. No. Just confirming the total." He reached for his wallet with exaggerated calm and withdrew his black credit card slowly, letting it catch the light like a trophy. Betsy leaned forward. "So Scarlett," she said, her voice as sweet as a poisoned apple. "You still haven't explained how you're going to pay for this dinner. We wouldn't want you stretching yourself just to impress us." The table hushed. Again, all eyes turned to me. "I can afford it," I said coolly. "Really?" she pushed. "Because food service jobs aren't exactly known for six-figure salaries." "Are you in debt?" my mother asked bluntly, maxing cards to maintain appearances. Before I could speak, Hugo frowned at the check. "Wait, they only charged us for the wines." He flagged Marcus. "Excuse me, there's a mistake. The food isn't included." Marcus looked at the folder, then at me. I gave him a quiet nod. "There's no error, sir," he said. "The dinner portion has been taken care of." Bradley blinked. "By who?" Marcus turned with a smile. "Miss Scarlett, of course." "Welcome back, chef. Your usual table is ready if you'd like to meet with the investors after this." Silence. Thick, stunned silence. I set down my glass, finally letting the weight slide off my shoulders. "Enjoyed everything?" Marcus asked. "Wonderful as always," I replied. "Deduct the full cost from my account, please." The knives they'd used to slice me apart had just slipped from their hands. "You own this place?" Betsy's voice cracked like glass beneath a heavy heel. I rose slowly from my chair, placing my linen napkin beside the plate with deliberate grace. "Yes," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I'm the executive chef and sole proprietor of Mazan. Welcome to my restaurant." My mother's hand shot to her pearl necklace, the same involuntary motion she always made when her social standing felt threatened. That's impossible," she stammered. "This restaurant has been featured in Bon Appetit, Food and Wine, and the New York Times," I continued, my gaze level. 4 stars. Reservations booked 3 months in advance, and tonight you were unknowingly my VIPs. Hugo leaned back slowly. The smirk that had played on his lips all night vanished, replaced by disbelief. Even my father, Richard, always so sure of his own authority, looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. "I moved to the city 5 years ago," I said, letting the truth flow like aged wine. "With no connections, no safety net. I worked 18-hour days, waited tables, washed dishes, cooked until my arms were covered in burns. I shared a studio apartment with 3 roommates in Queens. I studied every waking moment, and I built this on my own." Jessica returned to quietly clear the plates, offering me a small, proud smile. "Would you like us to prepare the private room for your investor meeting, chef?" "In 10 minutes, please," I said without looking away from my family. Hugo cleared his throat. "Scarlett, why didn't you tell us?" I met his eyes. "Because I wanted to see how you'd treat me when you thought I was still struggling. I needed to know. And you just let us." My mother faltered. "You let us say all those things?" "Yes," I said, my voice hardening. "Because that's who you are when you believe someone is beneath you." Betsy stood abruptly. "That's manipulative," she snapped. "No," I replied coolly. "Manipulative is asking if I'm dating someone rich because you couldn't imagine I was capable of paying for this dinner with money I earned." Chef Miranda approached, her crisp whites immaculate, a clipboard in hand. "Chef, the Matsusa party is ready. Also, the publisher confirmed the cookbook design, just waiting on your final notes." I nodded. "Tell them I'll be there shortly." My father finally spoke. "Scarlett, we were wrong." I paused, hand on the back of my chair. "No," I said. "You just didn't care to know who I really was." And with that, I turned toward the kitchen, my sanctuary, my truth, leaving behind a silence louder than their laughter had ever been. The dining room had long emptied, yet I remained, alone now at my table, the same one where they mocked me hours ago. The dim lights cast soft shadows across the linen, the hum of the kitchen now replaced by silence. Jessica reappeared, placing a steaming cup of herbal tea beside me. "You handled them with more grace than they deserved," she said gently. I gave a faint smile. They weren't ready for the truth. but I was. Chef Miranda stepped in briefly. Investor meeting went well. They're in for the second location. I nodded. Good. Let's start planning the concept next week. As she left, I glanced at the empty chairs where my family had sat. I had spent years yearning for a place at their table, only to realize tonight that I had built my own. My phone buzzed. A text from Betsy. Please forgive me for always neglecting you. True healing lies not in dramatic apologies but in steady, respectful connection, and in believing in herself. Real victory was not impressing them, but recognizing her own worth.
Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you tomorrow.